Hello everyone, I am Gibson Shamar and this is the video where we will talk about how we would have made X-Men 4, which we would have called Legacy. This would follow our version of X-Men 3, not the one that we got in theaters. So if you want to see what our X-Men 3 would have been like, just look at the top right corner of this video and click on whatever you see there. If you already watched that video or don't care enough to watch it, you can continue viewing this one. Spoiler alert! Cyclops doesn't die, and is actually important to the story in our X-Men 3. Anyway, this movie would have been released in 2009, keeping with the 3-year gap established by the previous entries, and the main themes would explore father-son relationships. That's right, we'd be moving in the soap opera and dramatic territory of X-Men mythos. Don't worry, we'd still have made it grounded, realistic, and action-packed like they used to be. So, here we go. Open the movie with a narration by Charles as usual. This time he is talking about legacy. After the opening sequence, show that a truck is transporting goods to a facility in a mountainous place. The truck is shown unloading goods and there's a group of mercenaries around. One in particular makes his way through the facility and we see many cells where there are mutants who are trapped in cages. The mercenary gets to one in particular where there's a couple of siblings who are twins. Those are the Maximoff twins. The mercenary speaks through the comlink saying that he found them. Immediately after he is done speaking, we hear loud thuds coming from outside and lots of shooting. The twins get up and the mercenary shoots the lock of their door to let them out. He says that they should follow him. They follow him through the facility as we hear chaos and get to the main entrance. Many mercenaries are guarding the entrance. The mercenary tells the twins to stay calm, then attacks the other mercenaries, killing them. He then shapeshifts. He was Mystique all along. She speaks into a comlink saying that they're ready. A truck goes through the door and goes away, and Magneto floats in with Pyro. He greets them. Wanda asks who they are. Magneto says that they are the warriors that mutants need in order to fight for them, and he's there to liberate the rest. Pietro says that they didn't need his help getting out. Magneto says that he would never dream of putting them down because he feels like their powers are useless. He wishes to free them from their mental prison which allowed them to be in such a place. He then tells Pyro to free all the other mutants. The facility is destroyed and the Brotherhood gets away. Cut to Xavier's mansion and show Charles and Wolverine speaking as they walk through the mansion. Charles thanks Logan for sticking around for as long as he has. Logan says that Charles has really done amazing things and that he owes him everything for showing him a place where he could feel at home. Charles says that it's not the place but the combined efforts of everyone that made Logan feel that way. He says that he should be expecting more people to be arriving soon and gets to his office's door. They're both surprised to see Cyclops standing there with a Native American. Charles smiles happily and remarks that Scott has been very quick lately. Scott says that he's doing his best to help mutant kind, and bringing them to the mansion is the best he could do to repay Charles for everything he has done for them. Logan sarcastically remarks that Scott is a suck-up. Scott calls Logan the teacher's pet that won't leave his side. Charles introduces Logan to the Native American, who is called John Proudstar. John reaches out for a handshake to Logan. Logan shakes his hand after a slight hesitation. Charles says that John shouldn't worry about that because Logan has a hard time trusting new faces. John says that he won't have to worry about much with him. Charles turns to Logan and says that John is a special mutant who can help build relations with the Apache. Logan asks why that's important. Scott says that it's always good to be friends with everyone and that Logan should try it sometime. Logan shakes his head and says that one of these days Scott was going to be put in a position he's not very comfortable with. Charles introduces himself to John and says that he will be safe from anyone who plans to endanger him from the outside world, and that everyone there should be considered family because as a species, they are all one. He then tells Scott to show him around the mansion. Scott takes him. Logan asks Charles how he's getting to all these new mutants. Charles says that he has many contacts which share his vision. He then tells Logan that he needs some privacy and that he will see him later. He enters his office and sees Moira McTaggart in there. He's shocked to see her and asks what brings her there. She's looking at his books on his shelves. She says that she came to see how he's doing and that he doesn't reach out anymore. He says that he's been busy with other matters and that he had several issues to deal with regarding his students. She says that she knows and asks if it's about Jean. He nods. She says that Jean was always special but wasn't always the most special one. He says that there were many special women in his life, but Jean was of a different kind. She says that Scott sure knew how to choose. Charles agrees and says that he was better at it than he was, and yet he's the psychic. She turns around for a second. After a brief but somewhat noticeable silence, he asks her how Sean is doing. She says that he's been busier than ever with his new faction. He says that as the world is becoming more aware of mutants, it's important to show them that not all of them mean to cause harm and destruction. She says that she knows, and that's why she came to Charles. She reminds him of something he had to do on Muir Island. He says that he never forgot, but had to find the time. She asks him what he's doing at the moment. He says that he's waiting for Teresa's father to come. He wants to visit his daughter. She asks who Teresa is. He explains that Teresa has been with him for years and never really stood out. She always kept to herself and stayed silent, which is ironic given her gift. Moira asks if she's the one who screams. Charles nods. They hear a knock on the door and Black Tom Cassidy walks in. They all greet each other. Charles tells Moira that Tom has also helped fund some of the programs in the Institute. Tom says that he could also fund her research on Muir Island. Tom says that he's fond of the mutant phenomenon and loves to help the children and is willing to do anything to help. He says that he would like to discuss some matters with Charles in private, and Moira says that she was about to leave anyway. Tom tells Charles that he's thinking of taking Teresa with him. Charles asks why he would want to do that. Tom says that he's thinking of moving to Europe to be closer to the family and thinks that Teresa would be better off with her kin for a change, instead of tucked away in boarding school. She needs to experience the real world for longer than just holidays. Charles is a bit hesitant, then says that since Tom is the father, he knows what's best for her and can only encourage such a decision if it'll benefit her. Tom thanks Charles for being such a good mentor to Teresa, and Charles says that Teresa will always have a home at the Xavier Institute for Gifted Youngsters. Tom then asks Charles to call her. Charles says that she should be in class at the moment. Tom says that he'll wait. Charles smiles. Cut to Scott and John. Scott is walking John through the mansion and explains to him that there are students from all kinds of backgrounds there. He explains that at first there were runaways, but with time even those from healthy homes started to come and the place became a safe haven for mutant children. John asks if he was one of the runaways. Scott says that Charles found him when he was young. He had just discovered his powers. He says that he was the first one Charles adopted. He says that he looks at Charles like a father. John asks Scott what happened to his real family. Scott says that he doesn't know and he doesn't remember. John asks if there has ever been any strange episode in the past. Scott says that the very nature of their existence is strange, and that if he means if they have ever been attacked, they have. Scott reassures John that it doesn't change much because the fact that they're still there means that they can protect themselves, and with John there, they have a better chance. John says that he's going to do his best to contribute to the dream, but would much rather stay away from fighting. Scott says that not everyone chooses to be an X-Man, but John's gifts would be a great asset to the team. John asks what the X-Men are. Scott explains that the X-Men are the ones from the school who go out and literally fight for mutant rights, and to protect the world from mutant menaces who would do harm to themselves and the world. John says that when Scott talked about fighting for mutant rights, he didn't think it would be literally. They get to Storm, who's teaching a class. Scott introduces John to her and says that she's a future leader of the X-Men. John says that he's honored to meet someone like her. She says that she feels the same way and tells everyone in the class to welcome John. Have a cameo of Jubilee, Cannonball, and Artie. Teresa is also in that class. Scott walks away with John. John is very impressed by Storm and says that she exhibits a lot of power and authority. Scott says that he'll see a lot of that around there. He then takes John to the entrance of the Danger Room and tells him that it's where the X-Men train. He explains that he built it in order to better prepare the team for the threats they face in the outside world. John is amazed but sees that it's an empty room. Scott explains that one needs to turn on the simulation and set the environment up to however one would want to, and change the intensity level. John says that this is like training child soldiers. Scott says that it's how he grew up. Cut to Storm, and her class has ended. Charles contacts her telepathically and asks if she can bring Teresa to his office. She calls Teresa to her and says that she should go with her to Charles. Teresa asks if she's in trouble and she says that she's not. Storm says that Charles just wants to see her. They arrive at Charles' office and Teresa runs to hug Tom. They have their reunion and Tom breaks it down to her. She's a bit distraught but accepts the opportunity to go. Charles notices this. Cut to Bobby and Rogue walking together. They're in the gardens and Rogue tells Bobby that she had a strange dream the prior night. He asks her what it was about. She says that she dreamt about his family and they were in vacation in Miami and the weather was so hot. She then discovered her powers and they were his powers. He said that those are his memories. She says that she remembers because he told her that. He asked how she could have that dream. She theorizes that it's because they have been touching each other more and more often. She thinks that her powers are passively absorbing his memories. He says that it's a weird feeling knowing that his girlfriend can enter his mind like that. She asks if he'll be able to live with that. He says that he's been living with that for a long time and can do with it a bit more. They sit down on a bench and watch as the other kids play around. They continue to have couple banter. As they have their banter, Gambit is in the basketball court, which is right in front of them. He finds Colossus sitting down and drawing what looks to be Kitty walking through a wall. He puts the sketch away when Gambit calls him. Gambit challenges Colossus to a game of basketball. Colossus agrees to it, albeit awkwardly. He stands up and they play their game together. They have playful banter where Gambit teases Colossus about his height not helping him much. Colossus tells Gambit that Gambit isn't going to sneak past him because he used to catch thieves at the farm back home all the time. They have their basketball game and the ball eventually goes to Rogue and Bobby. Gambit goes to get the ball and greets Rogue in a smooth way. Bobby clearly doesn't like it. He says that Gambit should get the ball and keep playing. Gambit says that he will, if Bobby joins in. Bobby says that he doesn't play basketball. Gambit says that it's never too late to learn. Bobby reluctantly stands up and joins the game after Rogue convinces him to. The three of them play the game as she watches. Cut to Magneto's lair, and he's with Mystique, Pyro, and Polaris. They're seated at a round table. The Maximoff twins are shown walking towards that room. Pietro asks Wanda what they're doing there and says that they should have left with all the others instead of staying like that girl who controls metal. Wanda says that she wanted to stay to hear what Magneto had to say and what he wanted with them. Pietro says that people like him are dangerous and that they're better off on their own like they had been before the facility. Wanda says that those labs were a mistake to begin with and that they should have never volunteered for those experiments. Pietro says that it was their choice and Magneto breaking them out of there took that choice away from them. Before she can say anything, they get to the room that the others are in. Magneto welcomes the twins and Polaris to the Brotherhood of Mutants and tells them that they are the latest in his line of followers who will help him usher in a new age of mutant leadership in the world as the twins get to their seats. He says that the world has been rebuilding after the climactic battle in Washington over the Phoenix that was Jean Grey. He tells them that they are equally important and that their voices deserve to be heard. He tells them that there have been several initiatives around the world to round up mutant children and teens that the government refuses to speak up on. He has taken notice of various families that report missing children whose children are never returned and dedicates his time to finding them and rescuing them. And in return, they feed him information and work for him. Pietro looks at Wanda. Polaris asks Magneto what he gets out of all of this. Magneto looks at Pyro and Mystique. He then looks at her and tells her that he intends to make the world a better place. He says that he doesn't have any grand vision beyond seeing his brothers and sisters safe and prosperous. He mentions that to that end, he needs as many mutants who can help as possible and asks if they're all willing to share this dream unconditionally. Pietro looks at Wanda, who looks at Polaris. They all then look at Magneto, who smiles. Cut back to the X-Mansion and showed Charles in his office, and he's reading through his documents. He's looking at Teresa's records, both scholar and biological. Someone knocks on the door and he tells them to come in. It's Teresa, accompanied by Storm. He tells them to come in and they do. They talk about the situation and Teresa expresses that she doesn't really want to go to Europe and that she's happy where she is. Charles says that he could tell and asks her if she gets along well with her family. She says that she had never really been with them. She only talks to them at a distance. He says that he has no part in this issue, but he can try to talk about having her stay in the Institute for a class and go to Europe for holidays, although he doesn't believe Tom would agree to that. She says that she'll think about it. Charles dismisses her. She goes away. Storm stays and asks if Charles should really be getting involved in that. He says that he's only looking out for her best interests. She says that Tom is doing the same thing. He tells Storm to look at some of the documents on his desk. She looks through them and asks Charles what he wants her to see. He says that Teresa's mother is unaccounted for and that Tom always said that she died during childbirth. Storm says that it's common. He says that he looked through more documents and saw that there was something that caught his attention. The name Maeve. He says that Maeve was the name of his old friend Sean's girlfriend. Sean had moved away once he met Maeve and went to work with Interpol. Storm asks if Charles thinks that the Maeve in question is the same one. Charles says that he wants to contact Dr. McCoy to make sure before coming to conclusions. Cut to Tom, who is with a larger-than-life man in his own mansion. The man is wearing a helmet. He is none other than Cain Marco, aka Juggernaut. Tom tells Juggernaut that he noticed that Charles didn't seem too convinced to let Teresa go and he needs to take her with him to Europe as soon as possible. Juggernaut asks why he needs to take her away so quickly if she's in safe hands. Tom says that that's something he can't get into at the moment, but it's absolutely necessary. He adds that the people Charles is running into these days shouldn't be that close to his precious Teresa. Juggernaut says that Tom really loves her. Tom confirms and says that he would do anything to protect his little girl. He asks Juggernaut if he managed to get anything out of the files on Muir Island. Juggernaut says that he found the mutant Tom is looking for, but didn't find any information aside from confirmation that Muir Island confirms his existence. Tom says that there's only one way to get the complete picture, and that's by going to Charles himself, and he feels like that's not a good enough approach. Juggernaut says that they could ask Teresa. Tom says that that's an idea, but Teresa isn't ready for that yet. He says that he needs to access the mutant on Muir Island quickly but can't rush things. He asks if Juggernaut would be up for a potential family reunion. Juggernaut says that he's always ready to bring families back together. A few days have passed. Cut back to the X mansion and show Scott on the phone with someone, and it is very obviously a love interest. He says that he'll be on his way shortly after the brief conversation. He then heads for the door of his room and sees Logan standing there. He asks what Logan wants. Logan says that Scott's doing a good job at moving on. Scott sighs when he hears that and asks what Logan wants. Logan says that the professor has called for the X-Men to meet. They get to the room and Charles introduces Scott, Logan, Storm, Gambit, and John to Hank McCoy, aka Beast. Have a similar meeting between the characters as in The Last Stand, and even have that same "did he just call me boy?" interaction between Beast and Logan. Charles says that Beast has been working with Sean Cassidy with his faction and is there to help him with a small investigation. Beast tells them that he'll be careful not to shed on the furniture. Nobody laughs. Scott then tells Charles that he's going out and they shouldn't wait for him. Show Juggernaut and he is on his way to the X Mansion. Cut to Gambit walking on his own in the mansion looking for something to do. He walks past Colossus, who is seen talking to Kitty. Have random cameos of minor mutants from the comics. He then comes across Bobby. He says that he's been looking for Bobby. Bobby asks him what he wants. Gambit says that he's sorry if they got off on the wrong foot and that he feels like Bobby should be easy on him. Bobby says that he's not interested in being friends with Gambit. Gambit says that he gets it. He says that he wouldn't feel comfortable with someone catching his girlfriend's eye either. Bobby says that that's not why he doesn't like him. He says that he doesn't like Gambit because he's smug and thinks he has everything figured out. Gambit says that it's the way of the streets. Bobby says that these aren't the streets and that he was safer out there than in the mansion. Gambit says that he didn't want to cause any trouble. He just wanted to apologize. Bobby calms down and shakes Gambit's hand. He freezes it a bit like he did when he was introduced to Logan in X2. Gambit says that maybe one day he'll come around. He then goes away to stand at a balcony and looks around. He looks at the trees in the wilderness. Scott is on his way to meet the woman who he spoke to on the phone. He's on his motorcycle and arrives at a restaurant. He gets off and sits on a table and a red-haired woman comes to him. She looks a lot like Jean. She sits down. Her name is Madeline. He calls her Maddie. They start talking and open up about their days. They talk about their work. He doesn't tell her that he's an X-Man. He just says that he works in law enforcement, and that's what she talks about, with him answering slyly. They have their date, and Scott opens up about how he feels burdened but remains strong due to how much he trusts his father. He says that no matter what, he never leaves them hanging. She says that he's lucky to have someone like that. Cut to Magneto and the Brotherhood. Magneto has united his Brotherhood and tells them that he received information from Mystique, and she says that there is a mutant who is helpful to their cause. He says that they must prepare to move to Muir Island. Pietro asks who this mutant is. Magneto says that this mutant is unlike any other they have ever seen. Wanda says that she thought that she and her brother were special. Magneto says that all mutants are, and those who have the ability to reshape the world literally are the ones who are destined for true greatness, not unlike Wanda. He asks Wanda to display her power. Magneto flips a coin on the table and Wanda makes the coin start bouncing and go off the table. Magneto says that her ability to alter probability makes her stand on top of the mutant hierarchy. He says that she can turn the tide in her favor at all times and she shouldn't let her powers be used by the wrong people. She says that her powers were hers to use. He asks her what she was doing at the facility. She says that they volunteered to be there. Magneto asks who convinced them. Pietro says that it was people who were speaking on behalf of a certain Essex. Magneto sits back and smiles and turns to Pyro. Pyro shakes his head. He says that that name has come up more often than Charles and Moira MacTaggart recently. Magneto says that he seems to be a newcomer in the game and could be a big problem for mutant kind if he's not dealt with soon. Polaris, feeling left out, asks what should be done about him. Magneto says that they should pursue the information that they found on Muir Island first, and it will solve all of their problems. Cut to the X Mansion. Show Beast and Charles speaking in the lab. Beast has finished investigating. He says that the results are astonishing. He says that Sean always talks about Maeve and how he didn't have time for their relationship because of his work. He speaks about Maeve Rourke and looks at the pictures of Teresa. He says that Tom was with Maeve and Sean doesn't know. Charles looks closely at the picture of Tom. He asks if Sean ever mentioned having a brother. Beast says that Sean never brought such a thing up. Charles suggests calling Sean over. He says that there could be something they're missing here. Gambit, who is still on the balcony looking at the wilderness around the mansion, sees Juggernaut. Before he can finish his rhetorical question, a tree is thrown at the balcony and he quickly throws a card at it, making it explode. The students all look at the balcony and he runs back inside. He tells everyone that they're under attack. There are several students there and they start running away. Show Juggernaut stampeding towards the mansion and crashing through the walls. The students outside run out of his way as he does this. The whole mansion shakes after he crashes through it. He starts calling out for Charlie. He starts wrecking the whole place and asking where his prized little girl, Teresa, is. Jubilee gets in the way and uses her powers to try and stop him, but he swats her aside. Cannonball smashes into him and knocks him down and away. Before he can hurt Cannonball, who tells Teresa to get away, John grabs his wrist from behind. He tells Juggernaut that he doesn't belong there. Wolverine and Storm join the fight. Gambit joins in as well, and they fight all over the mansion. The whole place shakes. Colossus eventually joins the fight with Kitty. Kitty sinks Juggernaut halfway through the ground, and Juggernaut breaks it all and runs after her, and Colossus steps in. We have the classic Colossus versus Juggernaut matchup. They fight, and it destroys much of the mansion, and Juggernaut is shown to be too much for the team there. Bobby joins in and is beaten down. Rogue puts herself at risk to protect Bobby and Gambit and touches Juggernaut. Juggernaut is dazzled for a bit but regains his composure and tosses Rogue away. Juggernaut then goes after Teresa, whose screams affect him and everyone at the mansion. It also gets to Charles and Beast in the lab. The whole fight, they kept wondering why the mansion was shaking. They then realized that something is seriously wrong. Juggernaut, despite the loud screaming of Teresa, manages to knock her out by thunderclapping, causing a huge shockwave that destroys a large portion of the mansion. He then takes her and runs off. Logan, wanting to continue fighting, runs after Juggernaut but is outmatched by Juggernaut. He goes off with Teresa in tow. So, we're gonna continue the story in 2 weeks. The next video to come up will be the A Pup Named Scooby-Doo talk. We're gonna have a blast with that one because we are having a blast watching it. This is our last week watching that show, and we have a few nice takes on it. Hopefully you'll tune in next week to check it out. Don't worry, we will finish this story too. We wrote it years ago and just needed to fill in a lot of the details. Okay, most of the details. But we figured it out and will be writing more of the story down. Remember, if you want better context, watch X-Men 1 and 2, then watch our video on how we would have done X-Men 3, and come back to this one. That's the continuity we're working with. Forget X-Men The Last Stand, Origins, First Class, and all those others. We have 4 movies in the saga so far, with no prequels yet. It works better this way. Anyway, thanks for watching our video. Please subscribe to our channel. please check out our Facebook page, our Instagram page, and our blog. We have a lot of cool content. Oh, and thank you very much for helping us get to 500 subscribers. Seriously, thank you. I had no idea we ever could, but I'm glad to be getting some attention. Please suggest the channel to more people. We want to create a production studio, and with your help, we'll be able to do it. Thank you, guys, and have a good day.